Great. So, hello. We had some emergency dropouts early this morning, so, and I know we are at holiday time, but this is a smaller but mighty group of our, and we also have several, hey, Joseph, great. We also have several openings that we're looking forward to some great nominations coming up very soon for the commission. So, but first, happy holidays to you all and to whoever decides to listen to us later on. Thanks to our wonderful Metro recorders. We appreciate you all every time. And really, happy holidays to all of you and to all of our walkers, all of our cyclists, all of our baby carriages, one and all. We are here, we've got a great meeting, and we're gonna get a lot of good information that will be on the record for everyone. And and I'm particularly happy about this meeting, that we're gonna be able to have some chance at the end to have some good conversation and get out ideas for the future and how to make 2025 the best year for Greenways in Nashville that ever occurred. So, and we will find ways to take those and use them as we progress through the year and have more conversation too. So let's get started. First of all, everyone has the minutes and they were sent out ahead of time. Do I have a motion? And we may confirm this at the next meeting. Also, motion to...
I move to approve.
Thank you, Brenda. I heard a second over.
Second.
Thank you, Joseph. All those in favor? Okay. And I don't think that we have anyone who's signed up on the public comment sheet. Am I right about that, Cindy? Okay, so as you all know, we always appropriate time if there are people who want to come and talk to us about matters that are germane to the agenda, and give them a chance for us to hear from them, and for the public to be able to hear what their questions or comments are. So this meeting's going to be divided really essentially in three major areas. One are several quick things to update you on some things that calendar-wise have happened since our last meeting that was in October, and a wonderful field trip meeting. So that was great, and I think we all learned a lot, and it was a good thing. Well, hopefully we'll do some more next year. And then we'll talk some about the upcoming Plan to Play update, which we've all been really looking forward to as a chance to get updated the master plan for parks and greenways and open spaces. So we'll have an update on that. Then we'll have a quick update on what's been happening and what is most imminent to happen related to greenways. And then we'll hear from Donald at Planning, and we will then hopefully have some great time reserved to have this conversation about the future. So first, best of all worlds, we have Kendra Abkowitz, who is here from the mayor's office and going to catch us up on the transit referendum. We are all proud of what our city has done, and how our mayor and his office and many citizens led this to happen. Congratulations. You get to be the recipient of the congratulations, Kendra. Thank you so much. And we're really looking forward to hearing from you and how, whatever you can also tell us as we project forward about the best ways for the Greenways and Open Space Program and Commission to intersect.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Nelson. And it's great to be with you all today. Yes, huge congratulations to our city and many folks who did engage in the Choose How You Move Transportation Improvement Program process. We were successful in convincing 66% of Nashville voters that this is the right move and the right direction for our city. So really excited to be helping support our transition from planning and kind of educating to implementation. And so there's been a lot of work that has been ongoing for several months now, but I come to you with kind of three primary activities that we've been spending quite a bit of time on. So the first is just this past week, about a week ago, Council approved a resolution to form an advisory body to help oversee the Choose How You Move program and its implementation. So as you all are likely aware, there were two advisory committees that were formed to help oversee the development of the Choose How You Move Transportation Improvement Program. We had one that was focused primarily on some of the technical elements, and then another that was focused on advising on community engagement strategy. And so this advisory body, as put forth in that resolution, is intended to be kind of a 2.0 version of those advisory committees to, again, inform overall strategy for implementation of the program. It's not intended to supersede any project-specific engagement that will happen. So we know that there are likely a variety of advisory bodies that will be formed and engagement activities that will happen around individual projects. But this is going to be that group kind of informing the umbrella strategy. And so more to come on that. But that resolution, it's RS 2024-880, was just recently approved by council. So we're really excited about that. I think, again, the big important thing here is that we do have a mechanism at a very high level for representing community interests, right? So the goal there is to have representatives of the community on that body who can speak to what they're hearing about in the community. The next item that I wanted to update you all on is recruitment of somebody to oversee this work. So we did actually the day following the passage of the transit referendum on November 6th, we released a job posting for a Choose How You Move Chief Program Officer. And we did do a national level search there. That position closed end of November. And the team is now in the process of working through all the incredible resumes that were received. And then we have a very robust interview and selection process that individual will be required to work through. So we've got multiple layers of applicants sort of review and vetting, several different interview panels, and then they'll be able to, some of our finalists will be able to take part in a multi-day on-site visit here in Nashville where they get to meet with various leaders of departments that they will be coordinating the work of and really interacting with closely, as well as external stakeholders. So again, more to come on that. We hope to have that person on board sometime in the new year between, sort of end of January, February, early March, just depending on the circumstances and how quickly we can move through that process. The last item that I'll update you on before I talk a little bit more about opportunities for collaboration is we are recognizing that there is a need for partnerships with with vendor partners in the future to help implement all of the projects, $3.1 billion of capital improvements and a number of operating improvements annually. And so we did host on December 8th our Choose How You Move procurement info session. And it did not go into a lot of details about specific partnership and procurement options, but it did essentially set the stage for broad vendor education on the program, and then clearly signal that we will be looking for support in a couple of different ways. One is through program management structure. So again, as you all know, this is bringing together different types of projects across our county that essentially are executed by different departments within the Metro organization. And so helping create kind of a cohesive program management structure that makes sure that's all pulled together, aligned, and clearly coordinated, and that we're efficiently using resources. So that's one of the upcoming opportunities that we'll be tackling in early 2025. And then, as mentioned before, there are going to be a variety of project-specific opportunities, both on the planning and design perspective, but then also on the construction perspective for vendors to also take part in. And so our real main goal in that December 8th info session, there were 90 participants, was to put people on alert that we're going to need a lot of help to get this done, and then also be thinking about sort of where they might be able to best support the city, whether that's in program management, design, engineering, planning, or in the construction management piece. And as you can imagine, there are a lot of questions that we're receiving about, you know, if I participate in this program, what does that mean for work that I might do with this department? And so we're working through, again, kind of what that means and making sure we can be responsive to those questions in a way that's in alignment with existing procurement policy, but also you know, considers the realities and complexities of the scale and scope of work we're doing. So again, more activity intended in January, particularly on that program management office component in particular. So that kind of rounds up how we've been spending a lot of our time. We've been having a lot of conversations about kind of governance and oversight and processes, and sort of how individual projects that today are executed by programs that are overseen by departments intersect with these large capital projects that are really of a scope and scale that we haven't executed before. And so been trying to work on these foundational elements and creating the structures we'll need to successfully execute. Chair Nelson, you also asked about what might be helpful for this group to hear moving forward, and I'll kind of refer back to some of what we shared, I think, when I presented to you all several months ago. So I think this presents great opportunity for us to think about connections between different infrastructure systems across our city, whether that's more traditional transportation infrastructure or broadly more mobility and sort of public infrastructure. And so I think we will have the opportunity to much more intentionally think about connections between those assets and infrastructure systems. So thinking about how a greenway might connect to a bikeway, or how a greenway might connect to a sidewalk, or how a transit line or bus stop might increase access to a greenway. And so those are things I think to be on the lookout for. There will also be a variety of, I'm sure, sort of interdependency project questions and considerations. So how might build out or construction of a greenway present potential either acceleration or collaboration opportunities with transportation infrastructure projects that might be happening within that vicinity or nearby. And so I think we've clearly recognized that Choose How You Move has the opportunity to maybe shift timelines and focuses of projects around the county, both from a transportation infrastructure perspective, but beyond. And so there will be a lot of coordination that needs to happen. And so we look forward to this group being partners with us in terms of figuring out, again, exactly what those interdependencies look like, how it might have cascading impacts, both positive and negative, I would say, on your projects. So we fully know that that will happen. And then I think the second item that I would share is, you know, the item that voters did approve in November is a mechanism for funding infrastructure. By law, we were required to develop a plan or a program that demonstrated how we intended to use those funds, and we do intend to very closely follow that plan. But there will be circumstances that arise where we do have to shift or perhaps divert from that plan. And so what I will share with you all is that there may be opportunities at some point in the future where there could be aspects of the Greenway system that could potentially be funded by this. That's not our intent at this point in time, but we did vote on a mechanism that could be used to fund infrastructure projects. So we know that we've got a vast array of individual projects as part of this program that we're going to be prioritizing, and Greenways were not included in that, but that opportunity could present itself in the future. And as part of thinking through those connections, I think that's where we'll potentially see those opportunities.
Great. You all are off
Sorry,
to
that was a lot.
Off to a fast start. No, it's great. I think
I told Cindy I'd be brief, but
I appreciate that. And so with 10 seconds that you've had to think about this, does anybody have any questions while we've got Kendra here? That's great.
and I'm always happy to come back and
Yeah.
have more conversations, or we can make this kind of a quarterly update. We're trying to think about how to use existing infrastructure to provide recurring updates that will support that collaboration and engagement. So
Well,
we can
we
absolutely
would
make
love
it a
for that to
recurring item.
happen. So, yeah, Ed.
I'm sorry. Okay, Brenda Gilmore, thanks for being here, and congratulations, that's a huge success for the city. So when will the community actually be able to see something concrete happening with Choose How You Move?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and one we're receiving quite a bit right now. We anticipate that, I would say, really kind of late spring, early summer is probably when we'll start to see the first projects that were really tied back to Choose How You Move kind of come into being. And so it's highly likely, and I'll list a couple of things. This is not set in stone, but I would say it's highly likely that we will see some service enhancements go into effect that were discussed in the Choose How You Move Transportation Improvement Program this summer, if not sooner.
Is that with the bus system when you say service?
Yeah, so
enhancement?
service enhancement, yes. Bus system service enhancement, so increasing the frequency on certain routes. And I can't tell you today exactly which routes those are, but we are planning to roll out service enhancements this summer. We are also having conversations about how quickly we can design and then implement our low-income fare program, as well as some upgrades within kind of current fare payment systems today. So quick ticket, there are a variety of improvements that are designed to make it a little more efficient to use and more accessible. And so some of those, I think, will be relatively near-term action items. We're also working really hard to try to identify some early signalization upgrades. So there are a lot of infrastructure and sort of technology, fiber related conversations that play into that, but we know that in certain circumstances we would be able to actually put in place some of those signalization improvements relatively soon. It's just a matter of identifying sort of the optimal conditions for that to happen. I will also share that planning and design work on certain projects included in that program has been ongoing for years. So I'll give you two examples. One is Maine and Gallatin, which is one of our all-access corridors. For several years now, that project has been kind of in the planning and design stage, and so that will just continue, except as we transition kind of into this implementation stage for Choose How You Move, it's now formally brought in as part of that program, as opposed to kind of being its own standalone project. And then under the prior administration, there were actually some planning dollars dedicated to Murfreesboro Pike for doing some planning there. And so that work will also continue. And so I think what I'm trying to tell you is there's a lot of work that's already started that will continue that directly supports and actually implements projects in the referendum. And then there will be a lot of things, and I know you asked specifically how will residents see it. There will be a lot of things that immediately happen and are really starting to happen today that residents won't necessarily feel. So it'll be a combination of kind of those quick rollout projects plus sort of planning in earnest and design in the early stages of project implementation that will happen just about immediately. I think the one other item that I didn't mention is we'll see shelter improvements on a subset or the starting of the work of shelter improvements pretty quickly, and that will be very visible.
Ask one more question, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Oh, okay, and so how will the community know that the projects are occurring in a comparable manner across all communities, rather than targeted communities? and I'm specifically asking about sidewalks.
So that's a great question. I'll say a couple of mechanisms that we've discussed, and I think some of this is open to feedback as well as not necessarily set in stone. So part of what that advisory group that I mentioned in my first portion of the update, part of their intention is to give us feedback to say things like, hey, it doesn't look like distribution of your sidewalk projects for years 1 through 5 is distributed equitably. It looks like this particular area of the county isn't getting enough attention or enough investment in the early years. So that's the type of feedback we anticipate getting from that advisory committee. As part of our kind of project prioritization criteria, the way we're thinking about it is a couple of ways. How do we identify the work that can be done kind of within the first 2 years of the program, and then there will be a second prioritization exercise that will happen sort of for 2 years plus. And so I share that with you to say there will be one level of talking about equity and how we're distributing project benefits either to the communities that need them the most, or equitably across the community. That happens for that 1 to 2 year process, and then we'll go through that process again for kind of that 2+ year timeline. And the reason we're kind of dividing it into those two buckets is some of that prioritization needs to happen pretty soon for those first 2 years, just based on the head times you need for applying for grants, getting funding to execute these things. But also I mentioned that program management office, and that's going to take us probably 6 to 9 months to get into place. And so some of this we're going to kind of have to do on our own, and do that today before we can kind of call in more significant program management support. And so there will be kind of a secondary prioritization exercise that we engage in, and that will very much I would say equity and geographic distribution are things that we have top of mind, in addition to those individual advisory committees.
Okay,
Thank you. This is a good way to lay groundwork for what we'd like your updates on. I mean, the more you hear the interesting questions that we've got, that will
They're all
hopefully
really,
help
really
that
good
too.
questions.
Ed?
And thank you, Chair. And it was a two-part question. I think you addressed the first part, which was specifically around projects that have already been either in planning or in engineering, and will they be able to be carried through or accelerated? It seems like that's something that's being focused on. The other one, and I'm wearing a little bit of my planning hat here, but also with Cindy there and her team, are there strategic things, and now may not be the exact time to do it, but definitely to think about it, as you mentioned, advisory. Are there ways that our committees and our boards can support engagement and collaboration with the private sector? I mean, along a lot of these corridors, there may be some opportunities where there is public land, but a lot of the opportunities that our infrastructure development has taken the ability to leverage over the past few years has been when there's significant private sector development happening. And so I'm just curious if you have thoughts on that now, or if that's part of the strategy going forward as well.
I have thoughts on it now, and it, I think, will unfold over time. So I think the way we've thought about it is that we recognize that there's a lot of development that is already happening where these projects occur. And so there it becomes a question of how do we make sure that we align activities that are happening there sort of with what we anticipate to sort of be the standard for this. So part of what we have to discuss is, are our current standards good enough for this, or do we want to develop something maybe more robust? So that's one set of conversations. And as development is actively happening today, we're going to have to make some decisions. And it might be that today we make one decision, but then our perfect scenario is something that's pursued long-term, or we develop kind of separate guidelines for that. I'm not saying that will absolutely happen, but that might be what happens just based on the timeline of the conversation. I think it also presents opportunities, and maybe this is where you are going, Ed, is, there might be infrastructure or a private sector investment that's happening, and they decide they might want to pay for a portion of sidewalk. And I think, again, the question there is, great, we would love that. Here are our design standards or our guidelines for that. And then prompts a conversation on our end to say, how do we repurpose or reinvest those resources in other projects because we're no longer having to invest them there. So I think that's an option. And then I think there's probably a lot of scheduling and sequencing that will happen that will come into play there. So if we do have a lot of development that's happening on a particular corridor, how does that impact, if at all, because it might not, our timeline for that project? So those are all the kinds of things that I think we're going to have to balance as we work, in addition to things like equity, geographic distribution. We don't want to be doing two major all-access corridors in the same area of the county at the same time. You wouldn't want, for example, Murfreesboro, Pike, and Nolensville to both be out of commission at the same time TDOT is building their choice lanes on I-24, right? So trying to also make sure that we're thinking through some of the disruptions that might occur when we do some of this work is also part of it. And so I think we'll have to, take those partnership conversations as they come. I think the other area where there's probably a lot of partnership potential is with our transit centers. And so obviously, those are stationary assets that serve a distinct purpose for us, but there are ways that you can look at joint development opportunities. And that I think is a significant opportunity for input from the public to let us know kind of what other assets or infrastructure they might want to see in their neighborhood. So that's another one that I think presents a specific opportunity. Mm-hmm.
Will the Choose How You Move officer, will they be coordinating NDOT's walk-bike plans and Greenways plans and planning's plans and WeGo plans? Is that the role where they coordinate everybody's plans and make sure that they're all working together?
This is actually a very current conversation that NDOT Planning, Mayor's Office, and others are having about plan alignment. And so that's part of our sort of recurring activity that hasn't happened recently, but it's due. And so as part of sort of our updates to street plans and needs, that activity is anticipated to occur next year. And so while this particular person will be involved in that, and will especially understand that in light of how it affects implementation of Choose How You Move, they actually won't be leading that work. But that activity is going to be ongoing, and it will also consider how Choose How You Move projects affect those sort of plan alignments. And I'm happy to have a more specific conversation with you about that.
I'm happy that the role's happening, and I'm happy that this is rolling out, and just want to know how it works.
A lot of moving pieces.
Yeah.
Tyler, Joseph, did either one of you all have, this is robust, and I know it's eating into some of our other time, but this is one of the biggest things the city has going on. And of course, we want to be aligned. We want to be able to take advantage of. We want to get you all the information you ever need. Councilman Clapp,
I do have
welcome
a
you.
Yeah, I do have a question on the organization of the program management office. Is right now there's just one person for the position is only for one person. It's what do you envision like the future structure of that? Because obviously one person is not going to be capable of doing all of this work together.
Yeah, I will tell you the org structure is not set today. We don't necessarily have it written down. I think it will be a combination of several employees. It will be a team of Metro employees who then work closely with vendor support, and it's probably going to be teams of vendor support. And so I think you'll have dedicated employees and FTEs sitting, at least for the first 3 years, within the mayor's office working on this. Mm-hmm. So we know we're going to need a lot of support, not just from this chief program officer position, but from a finance perspective and budgeting and accounting, from a procurement perspective, from a communications perspective, from a legal perspective, mm-hmm. from a community engagement perspective. So I would envision a team of people centrally located to work on that. And then vendor support, teams of vendor support to actually do a lot of that program coordination, and there may also be a need for build out of FTEs within individual departments. So there might be a need for, an individual FTE within the legal department to help oversee legal issues associated with Choose How You Move, or maybe somebody within the procurement department. We will probably see build out of staff in some of our implementing departments like NDOT and WeGo, and kind of structures there to build this out. So that will evolve over time. I think it'll kind of be a steady investment in growing those teams. And where we can't do that immediately, I think that's where you'll see some of our vendor support come in.
I see. Is this office under a mayor's office or is it under planning department?
It would, as we have envisioned it, it would be established, the chief would report to the mayor, and it would sit, at least at the outset, in the mayor's office, and then I think after the first 3 to 5 years, it could be something that then lives in a different location.
Okay, thank you.
Great question.
Well, thank you. I know we kept you over, but I think this is important to set. And of course, I think many of us have different questions, anxiousness like about when and how quickly and what do you need the most from Greenways writ large. So please keep us informed about that. When should we, or the division, of course, be looking to have, effective input and coordination?
Absolutely. We'll keep you all engaged.
Great. Thank you so much, and congratulations again. So we are going to continue. We have three other updates since our last meeting, and we're going to need to make them briefer than we would have otherwise. So, some of them are really just reporting under these next three, just to make sure that we're all informed. So, Cindy, I think you are going to do each of those next three, and so you can.
Yeah, thank you, and I'll get you to, and possibly Councilmember Cap as well on the ordinance to kind of speak about that. But I did want to let the commission know that the Parks Department, as you know, is actively trying to fill open positions for Parks Police. In the interim, they have taken the initiative to take two existing police officers, Parks police officers, and shift their focus solely to Greenway safety and patrols. So we're really excited about that. There's been some investment in gear for them, transportation gear, things that they need to be out on the greenways in all kinds of weather. And just a first step towards increasing safety along our greenways. So I wanted to let you know about that. And also, as I'm sure you all know, we're in capital budget season. We've got a mayor's capital budget before council that does include funding for greenways in terms of much needed maintenance, particularly bridges and boardwalks. It's $3+ million just for that one item. So we are particularly happy to see that. We've got a system of a lot of wooden structures that are beautiful, but they are aging out. And we've had some closures over the past year, repairing that infrastructure. And so that additional funding is very welcomed. So wanted to let you know that process is going on. Councilmember Cap, anything to add about capital budget process or?
Just that I support it.
Thank you. We hope so. And then there has been an ordinance that amends legislation for boards and commissions, and then also for the Greenways Commission. And those deal with staggering terms when someone rolls off. All of our commissioners are on staggered terms so that we don't have an influx or outflux of experience and new folks on. And this addresses when someone's term is up and they leave the commission, if there's a period of time in there before they are replaced, that new person's term begins at the end of the person that seat they're filling. So just some really housekeeping with that ordinance to make sure that we continually have a staggered rotation of commissioners. It also, particularly interesting for Greenways and Open Space Commission, is that it specifies, where it wasn't specified before, that our council members on the commission are non-voting. They are ex officio. So that's always, I think, kind of been a little bit unclear. However, still, your involvement here is extremely important to the commission, and that communication with the council and just, it's just very important. So it doesn't reduce that, it just clears up those roles. And Jeannie, was there?
Well, it also, it prescribes that the council people have 2-year terms on this commission. Of course, I would hope that some of the council members would really like to up there or get it renewed, compete again with your committee because, I mean, if this year is any example, we've had a terrific year of immersion in education, an unbelievably great orientation, work session, and really trying to deliver the kind of information that you can help make decisions with the council and with the mayor's office over not just the next 6 months, year, but for, the capital and operating budgets way into the future. So that's my pitch for re-upping if you possibly can, because I think it would really be to the health and benefit of this commission. And we definitely hope that not voting doesn't deter you from coming, because we need you, we need your input, we need your information. Yeah.
Well, thank you, and it doesn't at all. We needed to clarify that's a problem across multiple boards and commissions in the city, and there were other layers of things that needed to be clarified, so it's important that we did that, and I love being on this commission. I think that was the right choice for the council to make, and I'm glad that we're also
Well, by the way, it's
here.
the charter, because the Greenways hadn't been dreamed up when the charter was, so that's the way it was supposed to have been for our commission anyway, so that's good. Great.
And then absenteeism is addressed as well. So commissioners, board members are expected to attend, of course, all the meetings that they can attend. If they are, I'm reading here, absent for 2/3 of the meetings of the full body, then that would be considered excessive absences and would.
I don't foresee that being the passion of the people who serve on this commission is, this Christmas holiday is no example of it, but there's nobody. It just doesn't, it really is going to be a non-issue for us.
Yeah, I think just more housekeeping there, and we appreciate that, just clarifying those things.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions about any of those particular things that have occurred since then? So that's great. I want to move quickly to plan to play update. We've been talking about plan to play and its update for a good part of this year, and now it's getting ready to move into more active work. And Cindy, if you want to catch us up, I do want to alert you all that we will, as we've talked about before, we will have a commission workshop that, of course, there'll be notice given to the public, et cetera. And we are anticipating that that's going to be, no later than the end of January. I mean, it was, it's been pushed off, not just our workshop, but the whole sessions have been moved off, over, we anticipated it getting started a little bit earlier, but everything takes a little bit longer than one would
Yeah,
want. So you
so-
want to catch us up, Cindy?
Sure, and there has been a lot of work going on behind the scenes. Right now, we've been actively updating the status of the Parks Department and all of its infrastructure and systems, which is harder than you might think. Going back and looking at mileage and acres and playgrounds and tennis courts, the whole gamut, community centers, making sure that we've got that information up to date because that is the base that the plan works from. So we're close to wrapping that up, and the next piece that will happen will be public engagement. We're working on that schedule with a consultant team, so I can't give you that schedule today. I can tell you that the commission will have 3 interactions with the consultant team. And that's why we want to have the workshop ahead of time to really look at the priorities that were set by the commission and the department in 2017 Plan to Play, and pick up anything that was not in place, anything that needs to be amended, just a real fresh look at that as a commission together so that we can be particularly efficient and helpful in those meetings that we have with the consultant team. As soon as we have those dates, we'll let you know, but as Jeannie mentioned, I would anticipate trying to get our group together in a work session towards the end of January. And that should put us in a good place for when those meetings begin to happen. So there will be, a really broad public notification process. So we hope you all will, and I know that you will, stay involved with that. That's really, I'm kind of annotating in a moment, but unless there are
That's great.
questions.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize that once, and we hope to get this date set so we can maximize everyone's calendars as soon as possible. So when you see that come through from Cindy or from me, please respond quickly so we can coordinate as many people as possible. So.
Yeah. And in the interim, from the time that we set that date till we actually meet, I'll be sending some material or notices of where to look in Plan to Play, just getting you prepped for that so that we can, again, do that efficiently and appreciate that from you all.
That's great. Any comments, questions from that angle? Okay. So, Cindy, if you will give us a brief annual recap. Sometimes we have taken this entire meeting at the end of the year to go through all of what is going on, what's planned, what's coming up, what's been accomplished. But we've been doing, I think, a good job of getting that information out in our regular meetings. And so this is going to be an abbreviated, we're not doing a huge thing. But if you can do that just to keep things, again, fresh in all our minds of what we need to be thinking about. And, again, as we're looking forward, the more we are attuned to what the progression of projects, all of the interests and all of the things that are out there that are going to need over the next few years, if we're going to accelerate, and our greenways are going to need to be funded, we're going to need to be thinking about the public-private partnerships. We've got, lots of things that we need to intersect with the sets of information, and other agencies, other departments, other nonprofit groups, how we maximize for this city the opportunity to double our greenways acreage Kendra, you listening? No. Okay.
All right, and I am going to request a little change in the agenda because I know that we're pressing with time. So when I finish this, I wonder if Donald is willing to go ahead and give his project department update. I think it's really important, and I want to make sure we don't miss that.
So skip to it or
Now,
skip?
I'll run through this really quickly, and
we wanna
then
get-
I just wanted to pull him up next after me, if that's all right.
Perfect.
Thank you for that. So very quickly, the status of the Nashville's Greenway and open space system. We currently still have 15 Greenway segments, 11.62 miles in the final design or final permitting process, but you can see that several of those have progressed to being ready or almost ready to go out to bid. So the two 440 Greenway segments and the 7 Mile Creek project are expected to go out to bid in 2025, early 2025. The other projects mentioned there, other greenways are still in the design and permitting process. I'll highlight a few. The Whites Creek Greenway at Hartman, we're into design development on that project. Expect that to be designed to be completed at the end of the year, if not a little bit sooner. And then we'll be seeking funding for the construction of that greenway. Harpeth River Greenway at Ariza Bellevue, that's one that we're partnering with a private development on. That project has gotten its stormwater variance approvals. It's moving through planning for its final site plan approval, and we're actively working with those developers to implement the conditions of their plan, which include a greenway design and construction, and a dedication of 20-plus acres of open space. In addition, there are other infrastructure improvements, a vehicular bridge in particular that serves us very well in getting access to the adjacent half of the bend that project is located on, where we have donated, we've received a donated 60 plus or minus acres for a new park there. And then the Richland Creek Greenway at Bellmead Plaza, also moving through design approval process, and that includes some significant greenway infrastructure on Richland Creek.
Cindy, before you move from that, can you go back to that slide for a second? I know that, it's just really want to point out how many of these we have amazing partners, the stars that they're associated with new adjacent development is really something. Again, it's sort of under my umbrella of public-private partnerships that are moving much of what we're doing. But moving is not the right word, because it's our staff at the Greenways division working with these developers or these associated or adjacent development to make it happen. So it's not like it's all turned over to them. It takes intensive work by the department to make sure that the standards are, and it's done right, and it's something all really there for the future of our city forever. So I wanted to point that out, but I also want to ask a question. Are all of these, I guess, it's sort of the stage, or I'm not sure exactly, you can probably answer in a way that's better. Are they all funded? From what degree are they funded? And
So
forget the private ones right now.
Mm-hmm. So the capital projects that are listed at the top, the first 5 are 440, the 2 segments of the 440 Greenway. We have funding, and based on our budget estimates, we think we have the funding in place. hopefully that will hold true as inflation continues to happen, but
Yes, there are always changes, we know that.
there are
that
those,
it's
but
impossible to-
we think that we have the funding in place for those. 7 Mile Creek Greenway is a participatory budget project, and we believe that the funding will cover that project. The Charlotte Corridor Rail with Greenway, we have funding in place for design and what we anticipate being a first phase of the project. The Whites Creek Greenway, as I mentioned, we have the design money in place. We don't yet have the capital dollars for that construction. It's a little early to ask for that. We're still developing the design, and we'll continue to sharpen our pencils on the budget for that one. But that would be anticipated as a request in 2026.
Was the Gold Greenway, is that the one that has the potential ramp? Is that what we're talking
It
about?
does, and
Okay.
in preliminary plans that we've seen, and that one is just, at the moment, we're not seeing action on that one, but anticipate, and that's true across the board with many private development projects. There's a little bit of a hold, I think, happening on those.
And then the Cumberland River Greenway.
The Oracle, and, that's a whole different, that's not capital funding. The railroad trail, as I mentioned, we've got the funding for that project in a phase one.
Okay, thank you.
9 Greenway segments are under construction or opened in 2024. And this kind of highlights, even with private projects, maybe even more time actually needed with private partnerships, because we're in on those projects when they first are proposed for rezoning. So it's a very long process. It moves through efficiently. We work well with our planning department. Thank you. But we are in on those projects in the very, very beginning. So when Jeannie mentioned the intensity of our time, it is a great deal of time. If we're coming in and doing our own capital project, we're starting, we've got funding for a design and we've got a place to do it and we're ready to go. So it's a different animal. We're involved in all of those. We don't just, as she said, we don't just hand those off to private developers. But under construction, the Ben Allen Trail-Oriented Development, Madera Germantown, and Madera Nations on the Cumberland River. We've got a project at 900 First Avenue North that will temporarily close that greenway because that greenway is being rebuilt. There'll be lighting and improvements to the trail itself. First and Gay Park, we have a greenway there now. This First and Gay Park is a Metro project. It's hit a few delays, but it should start construction soon. And all those happening or completing here in 2024. The Browns Creek Greenway is opened, Fair Park Phase 2. We cut a ribbon at First Tennessee Park earlier this year, and the reconstruction of the greenway in front of the Newhoff project has also been completed. It's really awesome. New trees, new pavement, much needed improvements there. And then opening soon, the Brookmead redevelopment project and Peabody Union will both be opening here shortly, and we'll keep you posted on those as well.
Does the Ben Allen Greenway, that's Clear Blue Equity, does that connect to the Rethink project on Broadmoor? Is that going back and connecting 2 corridors off Ellington Parkway?
And I don't know what the Rethink project is. Their project is on their site. There's another project happening adjacent. The anticipation is that it will continue on with other projects to the north and south. Yeah.
And I think also one thing to point out to everyone is that a number of those are really urban projects, and the mileage is critical, but not often huge. And that's what it takes to build out a connected system and to take advantage of the opportunities, as Kendra was talking about, where someone is doing something otherwise in the vicinity, so.
A great deal of our planning staff's time is spent not only on reviewing plans and working with developers on design, but before that happens in acquiring the dedication of easement agreements for greenways. So that's setting aside a property for a greenway, whether that developer is going to build it or it's something that we're going to build in the future. We this year completed 10 greenway easement dedications, totaling 2.5 miles. We've got another 10 in the process of going through Park Board and Metro Council, and then 9 where we are still working out the terms and the specifics on those easement agreements. But that's 29 agreements totaling 5.7 miles, and those are located in 10 different council districts. So we are, always trying to be all over the county with those projects. We have others that are early in the 9.14 miles, early in the stages of review through the planning process, and not quite ready to go to council, but those are underway. And then in addition, kind of out of the topic here, but as you know, Greenways for Nashville has funded another 30 Greenway trailhead upgrade projects, and those are well underway. On the Cumberland River, those are complete. The Richland Creek Greenway and 7 Mile Creek Greenway are next in the queue. I think all of the physical furniture work, painting work that has been done, and they're finalizing the sign graphics on those. So a huge improvement for us. 21 acres of open space, as I mentioned, at the Ariza Bellevue project are in progress as we move through their whole development process. And then another 2.36 acres, I'm really excited about this one, directly adjacent to Fort Negley. The department received a $4 million grant combined with $3 million of capital funding and some additional state money to acquire in partnership with American Battlefield Trust those acreages. So it allows us to conserve battlefield property. It's part of the Fort Negley master plan, or will be. Really important land there. At the moment, the trust owns the land. The agreement is they will put a conservation easement on that land and then deed it back over to Metro. So we will own it.
Where's the land?
Adjacent to Fort Negley.
Is it like, that's your science center right there? or-
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Right at the railroad and really close
Is it
to
next to the
the,
green property?
it is the green property. But I don't think anybody here would recognize that. So we're very happy to talk about that. I'm going to skip interagency partnerships. I think you all know how many different groups, obviously, that we work with to get all these projects done. Keeps us busy. And
Great.
questions? If
Yeah.
not, we'll turn it over to Donald, if we could.
Okay. When do we think we might hear from the grant application for the Opry Mills, over to Opry Mills? I'm not sure how you.
We don't know the exact date. We expect it to probably be midsummer, mid to late summer
Okay.
before we hear.
A lot of people are very interested in that one.
Mhm.
Cross our fingers. That's a good one. Okay, yes, Donald Anthony is from Metro Planning Department and is a great partner with us and is assigned to be our liaison, right? Is that the correct?
Yes, and is technologically ignorant, if we haven't discussed that already. Sorry. I think it's on. I think it's on. Okay, very good. Donald Anthony with the Community Plans section at the Planning Department. I could stand up here for 2 hours. I'm going to just highlight a couple of things that we have going on. So I do want to tell you first about a project that we're spearheading in community plans, which is our Cane Ridge Antioch Small Area Study. So if you can envision a line from Bell Road from Nolansville Pike, so Bell Road on the north, Mount View Road, all the way over to the lake. So if you take that line and go all the way south to the county line, that's sort of the boundary for our Cane Ridge Antioch Small Area Study. Very excited about that. We're exploring policies, land use policies there, exploring existing and planned infrastructure there. That's largely at the request of some different community organizations down in that area, as well as Councilman Rutherford included this study on a resolution of a couple of years ago. And so we want to follow through with that and conduct that study. So we're very excited about that. We're going to get that study into the public engagement phase in late January, early February. We've been conducting a lot of stakeholder interviews on that project. Cindy was kind enough last week to talk with us, as well as some of her staff and some of the folks from the broader Parks Department as well about parks and greenways plans for that area, and there's quite a bit going on down there. So anyway, I'll be looking forward to, in February, coming back to you and telling you how the first community meeting for that went and what we're hearing.
Are there any intersects with TVA lines through that section? Because I know that that's been a discussion about using TVA as a trail.
Yes, I believe there are TVA lines through there. There are also Atmos lines through that area as well. So we're definitely exploring all of those as part of our research.
Jim Cooper was passionate about that.
Yeah.
Former congressman. So.
Good to know. Good to know. I'll definitely do some more research into that. Thanks. I was asked to give an update on Metro's conservation planning. So I will tell you that a few weeks ago, our design studio section issued a request for qualifications for firms that would be interested in developing our county-wide ecological conservation strategy. Per that RFQ, the strategy will address the pressures of urbanization and suburbanization on sensitive natural systems and landmarks. A primary product that we expect from that study is a comprehensive conservation strategy with an implementation toolkit. The deadline for responses to the RFQ is December 19th. Because of where that project is in the procurement process, there's not a whole lot else I can share beyond that at this particular meeting. But again, by the next commission meeting in February, we will definitely be able to share a lot more on that. And then one other thing I wanted to tell you internally in community plans, we are also working on a neighborhood planning guideline project. One of the things that we've learned over time is if I were to ask somebody what makes a neighborhood or what makes a good neighborhood, 10 people are going to give me 10 totally different responses. And so we're sort of working internally on trying to figure out what that is, what a real neighborhood, a functional neighborhood, what are the components, what are the different things that make it up, and how we look at neighborhoods in different settings, be it rural up in Jolton or suburban out in Hermitage or more urbanized here toward the city core. So that project we're working on internally, but once that conservation strategy starts moving along, we foresee those pairing up with each other. And so that'll be over the next 6-8 months. We'll talk more about that and sort of what our progress is on that, and how we're looking at neighborhood development with regard to conservation context as well.
Great.
That is all that I have.
Those all sound
All right.
really good and really important intersections and important other information that can help in the determination of priorities in greenways and open space. That's terrific. That's a great addition to amendment to the plan to play.
On the neighborhood creation piece, are you looking at priority transit stops as potential neighborhood centers as part of that study? Just curious.
So the team that's working on that is definitely looking at transit and transit's role in neighborhoods, yes.
Transit-oriented development.
Yes,
Right, yeah.
yes, definitely.
Yeah. So, great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Very much. And fortunately, Tom Palco couldn't be here because he had a grandson born out of town. So, and we didn't hear back, I don't think, from our NDOT invitation, but we will continue to be sure to do that. We got a lot from Kendra that covers some of that. So we have 15 minutes left. Cindy, was there anything that we didn't cover that from your?
Did we approve minutes?
We did, yeah.
Had to answer an email, I wanted to make sure that we did that. No, I think we're.
Okay, great. Well, congratulations on a good year, and we will keep moving forward. So this is only 15 minutes, and I know that we're going to be very, our minds are going to keep working, especially as we get in depth into the update of the plan to play. But we just wanted to take a few minutes, and we'll hopefully expand these few minutes more, and as we all start to get here on time for our meetings, and have more of these kinds of conversations. But the real purpose is to get you all's input, your thoughts, so that we can think more about how we move forward in 2025 and beyond. That is a very broad question, but if you were going to distill it down, it would be more like, what kind of goals are on your mind for 2025? What kind of information do you think you need more of? And, you know, Cindy was like, gosh, I'm really so anxious to hear what people are thinking. And so we really wanted to set a few minutes aside. We're not going to be able to answer, and, you know, Cindy, we're not going to make you assume you got to pull it all out of your mind, but we're not going to be so much looking at answers, but, and I think we're not going to have as much time to talk about, to get any ideas out on the table, and we'll continue to do this, but also to discuss the how. You know, it's the sort of what, why, and then how we move any of these ideas into or off the table. Or so one thing I just want to ask as a sort of a consensus kind of feeling, when you start to think about goals and strategies, so often you really need a working group or to concentrate and bring things back to your commission or to your board. If we start to assemble things that we really want to look at for our progress and talk about, know about, and get more information about it, would you all be inclined to, or willing or interested in setting up a relevant subcommittee or committees? Obviously, we'd be giving public notice about these conversations, but to be able to help build forward on how we're going to move forward. Now, I know that's a very generalized kind of question, but is that something that you all would be willing to or interested in being a part of? We're not talking about meeting every day, but things that can be discussed in a smaller group with notice and then brought back to our commission.
I'll say this, I already wear a lot of hats,
Yeah.
but I do understand the value of being able to have those planned, very detail-oriented time periods, especially when you have as much going on as we do. And one of the things that is done on one of the other boards that I'm a part of is we also have kind of bi-monthly meetings, and so there are subcommittees that meet in the month's interim. And just because we already have that structure, I'd at least offer that as part of the consideration if we are looking at subcommittees, is potentially looking at that being the time window of when those groups could meet. And again, it kind of keeps you on a cadence of maybe once a month, but you didn't start to have more frequent touches with the subcommittee and the larger committee, and I think that also could be helpful.
Okay.
It seems that in order to have really substantive policy-oriented meetings, we would need additional time and space to do that. And that might be best handled in subcommittee. I just think about our agendas are generally very packed with updates and reports. And there isn't a lot of, we've got 15 minutes now, right? Because we've endeavored to have 15 minutes. And to be able to expand on that, I do think that there would need to be additional time and space for those conversations.
Joseph, what are you thinking? And you all can blend the possibilities of the how with your ideas, because we don't have all that much time, but, so don't feel like you have to be just on the process. Okay, great.
Well, even though I wouldn't have a vote on the proposal or in the subcommittee, I would be very happy to help with that. I think that getting into the, substance of some of this stuff is something we are short on sometimes in these meetings, and I'd certainly be eager to help push some of that forward.
Okay, great. So can I, Joseph?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, is there sort of a consensus that you'd be willing and interested in that kind of subset meetings? Okay. And I like the idea of, we do have a month off, as though you don't have anything else to do with your time, but that could be used to do that. So now, just whatever is on your mind. It won't necessarily, this is really a great input time, something that you feel like can help move things forward.
I've been thinking about the fact that as we start developing particularly the urban greenway system, and I think this has happened already, but how do we leverage our work with Greenways for Nashville and the fundraising that they've been talking about to raise the money for the rail and trail, for instance? I think they were talking about raising $12.5 million. How do you support that from the Greenways Commission? How do you support raising additional monies to take away from the need for capital budget? And then thinking through, who are those partners? How do we work with Greenways for Nashville? How do we recognize the people who do give? These conversations in relation to Greenways and parks seems like that would be a good discussion.
Okay, so we're sort of just getting out on the table topics on your mind. Yeah.
And I'll bring this up. I mean, again, referencing how things have happened in other spaces, but with Planning Commission, we do have work sessions, and I think, there might be a really good opportunity to utilize, we just talked about subcommittees, but even if subcommittees aren't every interval that we discuss, perhaps there's a work session, which is kind of the same group, but it's much more focused on a particular topic. And one thing I'm really interested in is, and we saw some of this in the presentation, we're starting to see I'm going to say the fruits of the labor, the labor of those that we're presented to here, but about the new Greenway segments that are coming together. I think it would be great to hear, their takes, lesson learned, what things have worked really well. Donald just mentioned if you talk to a neighborhood and you ask them what makes a good neighborhood, you're going to get 10 different answers. I would assume if you talk to a development partner or a community organization about what makes a good greenway or what they want to see in their greenway, you're going to get 100 different answers. And so I think some of what we've seen as far as newer greenways that have come into effect, what we're seeing as far as some of the partnerships and the strategies with some of the developments, whether they're a part of the development or adjacent, I think that would be worth at least digesting. What we would do with that information may not be predetermined, but I think it would be good to hear that feedback.
Clyde?
I think working groups could be, I haven't thought deeply about this idea, but subcommittees would be pretty small. And there would still be a need to communicate between the subcommittees. So working groups, still a relatively small group, might be able to hash through some more substance rather than breaking us apart, maybe. I mean, that occurs to me. I haven't really thought this through in any depthful way, and I don't know how many subcommittees we'd really need or what precisely they'd be.
I think there is a question whether it is a working group to work on one particular thing and bring back, or, and as opposed to trying to come up with some umbrella things that would last kind of thing. So I think that's a really good point. Yeah.
Sort of dovetailing off that, one of the things that's really important to me in 2025 is that we do have meaningful feedback for Plan to Play, and I'm really grateful that we're going to have a workshop in advance. So this kind of having a work session where we can prepare ourselves for providing meaningful feedback and able to actually have a good impact on the process is a good example of how we can begin to sort of, have a working group on an ad hoc basis as matters arise, right? To be able to sort of figure out how to best formulate our feedback and input into a process.
Good point. Did you say you agree? Okay, good. So,
Yeah, and it's also interesting now that the transit referendum has passed, it's like Plan to Play includes the city central Greenway, and now there is a mechanism to help create it, and there's an allusion to more money that could come. Do we really get to tap into that, and how do we lean in if we want that money to create the connectivity that we so seek?
yeah, it's, you got to be ready, and then you got to have the money to carry out what it is that you're ready to do. I mean, it's sort of a simple formula for success, but if, all you have to do is listen to Cindy about how many the ground is being tilled for many projects, and how you pull them together, and getting the information out there so that certainly the mayor's office and certainly the council members who would make the decisions what to push forward. How are we setting up for the next year, the next 2 years, the next 10 years? And that's the kind of conversation. I know it's in a lot of different minds and a lot of pieces, but to get us sort of framed to be as constructive a advisory group as we are to very talented Greenways Division staff and Parks Department. And so anything else you think, any areas that we haven't been addressing, any, I think if there were enough time in the world, I would want to go to all the planning commission meetings. I'd want to go to all the BPAC meetings, and I would want to go to, there's just so many things, and how we understand more how all that's working together, but we can't.
I noticed you left council meetings out, and I don't blame you. But I do want to second Tyler's mention of preparing ourselves to give substantive input into Plan to Play. I do think that's probably where, from what I can see, those groups come together and those interests will sort of be hashed out. And I think that that's an important citywide process that's even more timely now after transit has passed. And I think that's a great opportunity for this group of folks to, make sure that Greenways and open space are centralized in that document.
Yeah, and it does feel with the 4 councilmen that we have on this commission, it's like that body goes back and educates the council, and with Greenways Commission, possibly formulate strategies and plans and priorities that can be taken back through council so that we continually get the funding in place so that we can get these things done. And, it takes a group of you, but if there are 4 or 5 of you that go back in and educate everybody, then when your bills are up for consideration, you'll get the support from council passed, and then it's in front of the mayor's office, and we get funding on a regular basis. It's super important.
It's the whole issue of how we help you take it to take it out, I neglected to mention, we're thrilled to have 2 people from the Hermitage area who came to visit and hear what we had to say, and others who I just didn't happen to meet maybe, but I know, of course, the Greenway staff, and so. But thank you. I mean, that's important. I hope you all learned something that you can do with as you as you desire. So thrilled with that.
Jeannie, I did want to mention field trips, and I think those would come after the Plan to Play workshops, but I think it's really, I think everyone not only just enjoyed it, but I think it's really important to get out and get this group out, either on sites, multiple sites, taking a look at some of the privately funded projects, because that's somewhat new in the history of the department, and getting out onto these project sites where we're in the middle of design and letting us talk through the issues that we look at there and the things that we're dealing with and building those. I just think that's hands-on is really important. Sitting inside this room is fine, but I'd like to see us get out.
I agree,
do that.
and you did that was an excellent field trip, looking at Sevier Park and Gale Park to Browns Creek Park. I thought that was super. It was very worthwhile.
Thank you. Yeah, it makes it real, and you really do, especially projects like that are adjacent to something like an interstate. It's hard to imagine what that is like unless you're out there taking a look at it.
And you gave us some super exciting potential news for 440 at the end of that walk with planning thoughts.
Oh, yes.
You can dream better outside on a greenway than you can sitting in a room. Is that the bottom line here? I
That's
think
the bottom line, yeah.
That's a good one. So,
Yeah.
and I think that raises, and those are the kinds of things we can also do between business meetings, and or attach a business meeting to it if, you all are, or you can bring a constituent with you. I mean, I don't know that we wouldn't, I don't think we'd get quite as much if we had 1 million people on the walk, but there can be those things too, and it, all of which raises in my mind the issue of what it is that our great partner, Greenways for Nashville, what it is that, they're going to do and set their own priorities, and they have a strategic plan, but it's in alignment with what the department wants to do and hopefully with what the commission is interested in. So what we would want them to think about adding to their activities or doing, what needs there are, and of course we, again, want it all to be aligned. These trailheads have just, what a gift those are, what that has meant in terms of just a sense of not just where you are, but a sense of just upgraded excellence, because everything, like the bridges, wear out, but to have them take that on, and Mark alluded to, a potential, the potential for raising matching funds for some of our projects, and so as a member, full disclosure, a member of the board of Greenways for Nashville, in addition to being on the commission, I think I can safely say that they would want to know what our ideas about ways that they can help move, because this is all about moving this great asset for our city into an even better, even more, because we got more people wanting to do it, be on them, have them serve this city well in its, multimodal build-out, as Kendra so well articulated, and for the health of our people. And it's our job, our responsibility to do everything we can to move it forward. So anyway, this is a great group to work with. Division, Commission, Greenways for Nashville, and the citizens of Nashville who care so much about these greenways. So have a great holiday. We'll all be back in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.